I'm joined now by Harold Hamm, the chairman and CEO of Continental Resources, joining us in Oklahoma. Harold, always a pleasure to chat with you. I am sorry for your loss. I know that you and T. Boone were actually quite close friends. What's going to be the biggest thing that you remember about your relationship?
Well, we're going to miss Boone. It makes me very sad, but, he had a life to celebrate. As you said, he was involved in so many things, and he's a great Oklahoman. He exemplifies the very thing that I got involved in this industry for, and that was a legacy of giving and generosity by so many very highly successful people, make a lot of money, and then for very great causes, they give that money up, and Boone certainly did that all through his life, and he's going to be remembered for that and what he's done, particularly with the school that he loved, and that's Oklahoma State University.
Also, what's so interesting about T. Boone's career is sort of where his emphasis was. It was obviously on oil, it shifted to wind, it shifted to natural gas. How was that when you would talk to him and get together and talk about your businesses? What did you notice about how he transitioned and how he thought of energy?
Well, we talked about all those things, and it always came back to oil. I think that was his true belief. He got involved in wind and renewables and a lot of those other things as well. And I don't think he saw coming, what happened with the horizontal drilling renaissance here in America and all the abundance that it created with natural gas, crude oil, and all the fossil fuels. So he was maybe a little bit ahead of his time in predicting that we should be on renewables and wind and solar and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I remember when he was talking a lot about peak oil, and then all of a sudden fracking really changed that conversation. And I feel like that was really exemplified today when the IEA reported that the U.S. surpassed Saudi Arabia in oil production back in June. Is that going to be the future, or should you and I be talking about wind and solar more seriously?
No, I think, the abundance of energy that's come about here in the U.S. With horizontal drilling, I certainly think that, that's the future, and Boone would agree with that. He came around quickly. He was a big investor originally, and Continentals, we did our IPO and made a lot of money with their stock. And of course, got on board with horizontal drilling and the abundance that it's created here in this country. And it shocked a lot of people that we could produce more than Saudi Arabia. But we began predicting that as far back as 2011.
That's right.
That would happen. So.
I remember,
yeah.
Harold, that's when everyone would say, you guys are crazy to think that. And now look at the numbers that we're getting. There's another conversation now happening in the oil market that's quite similar, and that's has U.S. shale production actually peaked? The naysayers point to things like parent-child well interference, so technical issues when you drill wells too close to each other, that you're going to have the drilled but uncompleted wells are going to run out, the best acreage has already been drilled, and that kind of puts a damper on growth here in the U.S. What do you say to that?
Well, the truth of the matter is that the Bakken is still growing, the Eagle Ford has some growth, and certainly the Permian has some growth. But, the rate of growth by companies, have been squelched somewhat by the market. Market's not paying for a big rate of growth. They'd like to see us meet demand and not exceed demand. Particularly with oil, and as has happened with natural gas. And so, you take the capital away from it, and that's what's happened with natural gas. People aren't drilling a lot of gas wells, and they shouldn't be. And it's the same thing with, curtailing the amount of drilling for oil here in the country, and that just slow it down. You don't have to be 25% a year. Let's go back to 10% growth and meet demand and not exceed demand.
But nevertheless, Harold, it feels like to be a slave to what the investors want in terms of capital markets is one thing. Why don't you just take Continental private?
Well, we all have to pay attention to the market. We're public companies, and you can't just go out and wing it on your own. And so they set the parameters, and certainly working for the shareholders and being aligned with shareholders. I think Continental is the very best example of that, and that's what we work for. So we're trying to do the best we can for the shareholders that own within our company.
Is there any circumstance where you consider taking Continental private?
Excuse me, I didn't understand your question.
Is there any situation where you would consider taking Continental private?
Certainly we would be more apt to do that than any other public company because we own, the majority of the company. But that isn't our intent. Our intent is if it's a very good bargain, we should be buying the stock back and basically do it with free cash flow. So we have two things we're trying to accomplish, and that's pay down debt, keep doing that, and as well as if it's a bargain, we'll buy the stock back, but only if it is.
So Harold, a lot of your peers, though, have had a really tough time. Even today, Alta Mesa, run again by Jim Hackett, had to go declare bankruptcy. You've also had some consolidation, take under deals. What do you see?
Well, there is consolidation going on. All the money that came in from the private equities, they basically their model was to buy acreage and then flip it to somebody else. So they were big competition in the plays that we basically did and developed. And so anyway, that model is broken, and so the private equities are in trouble, and some of the publics that weren't in the best plays, and Alta Mesa is an example of that.
That's the supply area. I just want to end on demand. I know that you were at the White House yesterday, and I just wanted to get any insight from you on a U.S.-China trade deal. Do you see China buying U.S. oil? Is the tariff prohibiting any kind of buying? Give me the sense on the international demand scale.
Well, international demand is good. Our ability to get our oil to the Gulf Coast and for the international market, that's what we're doing in the U.S. We're seeing Brent WTI get much closer together, and so anyway, we're supporting the president today with his negotiations with trade, and we'd like to see that progress made.